Delighted to be joined on the show today by the writer and director of the new Netflix short Flashback, Jed Shepherd. Jed, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, mate. How are you today?
I'm not bad, just cracking on. Had a day at work, day cooking, usual things. Pretty relaxed. Not too busy. But yeah,
Good.
thanks very much for joining us today.
hmm Pleasure.
Obviously, we're going to talk about Flashback, your new thing on Netflix.
Yes.
So for those that haven't seen it, it came out on Friday, the 20th.
Yep.
For those that haven't seen it, if you could just give us a kind of brief synopsis of it.
Yeah, so Flashback is about a yoga instructor who is really good at channeling her breathing and centering
Mm.
herself. And she is in a relationship with a guy called Scott, and it's going pretty well, to say the least. And then something really bad happens, and she finds herself somehow back in time, and she has to do what she can in order to get her partner back, or make him alive again. Essentially,
Mm.
that's the best I can do without saying specifics. But I'm fine to go into specifics. But I didn't know if you wanted it up front.
Yeah, we can go into specifics a wee bit kind of later on. So
Yeah,
I know obviously written and directed this. It's not your first
yeah,
time directing. Certainly you had your part and scare package. You directed an
yeah,
Ash music video.
yeah.
What was different about Flashback for you in terms of did it have a different feel to it when directing than those other projects?
Netflix money. That that
Fair
was
enough.
that was a difference. There was a
Yeah.
difference, and I knew on day one the difference when the catering was legit. When we had
Aye.
like about 10 different options, and I was like, "Oh, we're not in Kansas anymore. This is
Mm.
different." No, seriously, it's a really long process, and um, Netflix don't do many shorts at all. I'm
Mm.
one of the first they've ever done, basically, and so the whole thing was just so professional, much different than I'm used to. I'm used to just getting my friends together and just making something. This was a massive, massive company was involved with it from the very start. But it has been a real fun process, and
Mm.
yeah, so it's really good to see how it works with a big studio. And yeah, and that was kind of different for me being in the director's chair, because I'm kind of used to it from a writer's point of view or a producer's point of view.
Mm.
And yeah, it's just like having a bigger budget, having a lot more tools at my disposal, a lot more options, and then just have it drop to 265 million people at once is
Yeah.
crazy. Because
Mm.
with especially with short form stuff, sometimes the best you can hope for is it'll get into a festival and be seen by a room of 250 people, and then maybe it'll get
Mm.
on to there'll be a Vimeo staff pick, or Alter will pick it up and that'll be seen, best case scenario, by a million people, and that's if you're very, very, very lucky. But yeah, this is just seen by so many people all at once, and yeah, so that was the big difference, just
Mm.
just how high profile it is.
Aye. And did you feel that extra pressure kind of on set, things like that? Were Netflix fairly supportive or did it just kind
No.
of come naturally?
Yeah, it came naturally. And again, because like as you can see from the cast, still all my
Mm.
friends. Like Netflix were pretty cool with me. I was from the very start. I was like, I am just gonna cast all my friends again, and they were like, yeah,
Mm.
cool, sounds good. Um, so yeah, they were, because Netflix was so cool to me. I felt so relaxed, and they were on set, and it's not Netflix UK, it's Netflix US as well. So they flew
Cool.
over, and they were there every single day on set, and they were lovely, really, really, really cool, really, really nice and supportive people. So
Mm.
yeah, the experience was great. Didn't feel any pressure whatsoever, and maybe that's because uh, I never announced it till a few days ago, so
Yeah.
there isn't that kind of build up. um, so it was just like, yeah, this is coming out in 2 days' time. Enjoy.
Aye.
And I think that's the trick that a lot of people should do with films. Don't give yourself like a year's in advance. Like, hey, I'm making this thing, because there's just too much expectation.
Mm.
But it was difficult for the last year to, like, you know not post anything.
Yeah, so when did you finish filming and get everything kind of all good to go?
We filmed in end of November, early December last year,
Mm,
2022, and then just the post process, editing, grading, VFX. That was Q1 this year. I think we
mm,
were finished in maybe April,
cool.
March or
Right.
April. We finished, so it's just been a waiting period. Actually, in July or June, we had a screening in London just for cast and crew.
Mm.
And on the Prince Charles Cinema, you might have seen on my socials, on the front of the Prince Charles Cinema, it was like Jed Shepherd's Flashback. They had that up for 2 days on the marquee, which is really
Right.
cool. Really, really cool.
Nice.
Um, so yeah, it's quite a weird experience.
Mm. And as you said, obviously you've got the girls from Host back
Yeah.
in it again, mainly Jemma Moore, who
Yes.
plays Jess.
Yeah.
Um, Again, as you said, it's a kind of a constant in your work is working with your friends, giving you that not comfort. That sounds maybe the wrong word, but
No,
that
yeah, that's right.
familiarity.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
comfort, familiarity. We have like a shorthand, and that's just a trust as well.
hmm
I mean, I do like working with other actors as well, but there is something special about working with your mates and
hmm
doing bigger and bigger and bigger things and bringing your friends with you. There's nothing better than that. And because like
yeah,
like me and Gemma got on really well, so it was just easy. She was like the lead. She was the lead in my Scare Package 2 segment as well.
hmm
Um, so yeah, so like I'm sure the other ladies from Host are just like, why aren't I the lead in this? But specifically for this one, I wanted an Asian lead in this because I
okay.
think in a lot of things that we consume, you don't get that representation. So, being Asian myself, I thought, okay, if I'm doing something for Netflix, I want to kind of represent. So, yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, and the kind of secondary lead, if that's the correct word, Amar Chadha-Patel,
yes,
if I've pronounced that, hopefully I have, is
yeah,
Scott. From he was in Dashcam previously as
yes,
well.
yeah,
So the two of them work really well together, and as you said, you've got that representation on screen, which,
hmm
as you said, being from Asia yourself is very important.
hmm
And especially if you're saying as well that Netflix doesn't do a lot of shots, so that's something that's going to be more pronounced, that you've got that sort of representation on screen as well. Is that an important, just a kind of not double edged sword, but double act sort of thing?
yeah, and I think you know Netflix. I mean, behind the scenes, Netflix are actually very diverse themselves. The people who worked on this with me at Netflix, they were all diverse as well. In fact, the reason this came about is I am their Emerging Filmmaker 2023. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, there was like a six month to a year process where they picked me out of, I don't know, probably thousands of people. They picked me to do this, and I just wanted to do something that was very much represents me, and it's very London. Actually, initially they wanted it set in, I think New York or LA, and I was like, no, no, no,
Okay.
no, no, has to be London, has to be with my friends, has to be the stuff that I like, and it's so funny, like just people who I haven't spoken to in like 10 years or 20 years even since I was a kid. They've got in touch and they've been like my stamp is all over this in terms of
Mm,
it feels very, very Jed. Um, so yeah, and you can see just with even with the kids that were cast, like all
mm,
diverse from all kinds of backgrounds, and yeah, and that's what London is. So it's not me doing something that isn't the norm. That's what
mm.
London is. It's a melting pot of different cultures and different backgrounds, and it just makes sense to represent that on screen too.
Yeah. The cast not sitting kind of giving you elbows saying, no, let them set it in New York, we can still come with you. Set it in LA, set it in sunny Hawaii, fuck it, let's go for that.
you know, they didn't, but like they were probably thinking it. But
Aye.
if it was set in New York, it'd probably have to be Americans, which I'm fine
Mm,
with. Um, but I just want to. I'm from London. I want to set as many things as possible in London. I don't want to just run off to America and just do American things. That's what everyone before me has done,
Hmm.
and I want to try and enrich our film industry rather than
Yeah,
enrich the Americans.
yeah, yeah. Especially as you like, if it feels as you want to make it feel like you, like people from your childhood have been getting in touch with you saying
Yeah,
that you know London, so
yeah,
what better place to say it than there? Um,
hmm
so as you're saying, we'll go into the movie now, and
yeah,
with Flashback, it certainly leans sci-fi heavily more maybe
yes.
than your kind of features before that you've done. Is
hmm
that again sci-fi a big love of yours?
Yeah, and it's mostly because I've done the overt horror thing. I've done it to
Mm,
death. I mean, I'm still doing loads of it, but like everyone knows that about me. Everyone knows I can do it. It wouldn't be a big shock for me to. I know Netflix have called this horror on their service, but I think that's just
mm,
because it's me. But I'm obviously a massive sci-fi fan. But one thing that I haven't done is like romance, and I
mm,
wanted to try and do something that was a little bit out of my comfort zone, and a little bit more um, something that the general public could latch on to, not just the horror community. Much as I love the horror community, I also want to do stuff for a wider audience too. So
mhm,
Flashback is my way to do like a gateway genre piece that everyone can love. Like my friend watched it, he called me and he said, "I'm going to show it to my kids now," and I was like, "That's the
mhm,
exact right response that I want." Because I got into horror from Gremlins, from The Gate, from Poltergeist, those gateway like horror films. So
mhm,
I don't know where those gateway horror films are anymore. So for me, this is the kind of thing that hopefully will get more people into genre stuff. And
mhm.
yeah, and I'm just obsessed by time travel, to be fair. So
Yeah,
um, so I wanted to have
that's
my own
good.
spin on the time travel trope, and I just thought, okay, what's a unique way to do time travel? Yoga. No one's done yoga for time travel before,
That's
so
true.
yeah, and I just like doing unique things that, like, I don't know if you had put a gun to someone's head, they would never have come up with a yoga time travel movie. So, I
No,
thought, so yeah, it's my
interesting
it's my
take on it.
take on time travel.
Yeah, nice. As you said as well, the romance aspect between Jess and Scott,
Yeah,
you definitely feel that with Amar and Gemma.
yeah,
And as you said, with it being a short, you've got to fit a lot into a short space of time.
yes,
And the two of them work so well together. You can tell they care about each other. They've got their own little bits and pieces, their own little quips to each other, like Lovey More Than Chips. And it does work very well.
yeah,
Sorry. I just kind of left that open ended. That was terrible. Sorry. the but I was also going to ask, obviously, the yoga side. Is
yeah.
there and maybe it was just my kind of reading of it. Is there an element of spirituality in it? I know you've spoken about time travel. I don't know if you're a kind of spiritual person yourself. Is it something that again
Interesting.
interests you?
I wouldn't say I'm spiritual. I think I'm fascinated by any kind of rituals, be it
Mm,
like one that's more hobby like, up to demon inciting rituals. Um, I find yoga really interesting because I think it's something that a lot of people do, yet it's still a little bit mysterious and is wrapped in Eastern mysticism.
yeah.
So there's an element where when there is a question mark about something, and with yoga there is a little bit of a kind of like a wondrous element to it, because
Mm,
you're doing these moves and it's healing you physically, mentally, and all that kind of stuff. I just think it's really, really interesting. And Flashback actually spawned from it was a much, much larger story, probably a feature idea I had, and yoga was actually a real small element of it. But because for the
okay.
short, I had to cut out all the other stuff. In the longer version, there was a whole other reason why she could do this thing as well. But I had to condense it into one thing, so I picked the thing that's the most obvious, which is yoga. And yeah, I just think it's a cool way into something. It's just unique, and it also gave me the
Hmm.
excuse to have all the host cast in that yoga scene as well, and some other friends like Jemma, my co-writer and host, is there as
Mhm.
well, and some other friends. So
Cool.
yeah, lots of nice little Easter eggs.
Yeah, definitely. Go a wee bit more kind of spoiler heavy now. So
Yep.
it all focuses on the time travel aspect happens when Scott has been attacked at home.
Hmm.
Jess has been shot,
Yep.
and that is, it appears to be that she is having her kind of end of life experience, but
Uh-huh.
because of that yoga control,
Hmm.
she's able to almost pick a moment to jump back into.
Yes.
Um,
So
and have I read that right?
yes.
Cool.
So it's basically that phrase, when you die, your life flashes before your eyes.
Hmm.
And since I was a kid, I've been so interested in that. Your life flashes before your eyes. And I'm just like, what do you see? Oh, you'll probably see the highlights. You're not going to see, going to Sainsbury's and buying some baguettes. You're going to see like all the cool stuff. So
Hmm.
um, she in that flashback sequence, which is probably the most technically difficult thing that I've ever done as a director. You
Hmm.
see all of these interesting moments throughout her life, and she jumps into her birthday when she's 13, and um, she has to convince her dad and her future boyfriend well, she has to convince her future boyfriend really to stay away from her because he dies in like 12 years' time.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Aye. And it's the I saw some kind of behind the scenes shots you put up of filming that kind of what do you call it? I don't know the name for the shot, but when Jess is kind of falling onto her side and falling into different
Yeah, spinny
frames and
thing. I just call it
spinny
this
thing. Yeah.
spinny thing.
Aye.
Yeah. Well, that was you, I think it was because I wrote the words at the start. I changed the words a little bit, but it used to be like, instead of a jukebox of special moments, I think I initially wrote a roulette wheel of special moments, and like you never know
Okay.
where the ball's going to stop or something like that. And so in my mind, time was like a roulette wheel, and it's spinning through all of your moments. So the spinny thing was there from the start. It was just like, how am I going to achieve this? And even Netflix was just like, okay, Jed, how are you going to how are you going to achieve this?
Aye.
And just working with my DP for this particular one, we managed to come up with this idea. He really, really, really wanted to do something that was slick, and
Mm.
you know it's so slick. That whole scene is
Yeah.
just like so seamlessly slick. But then I wanted it to transition into like birthdays at Laser Quest, so then you see like the kind of morphing throughout the ages of young Jess.
Mm.
um yeah, that moment's going to be in my like directing reel for a long time, I think, because
Mm.
it's the thing I can show anyone and go, look, this is what I can do. I can do the spinny thing. It's cool. Give me a Marvel
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah, well, there you go. You know, that's it'll be there'll be every Jed Shepherd project moving forward. Now you're going to have to get the spinny thing in because people
Oh
are
yeah.
expecting it. That's what it is.
Well, I wanted to Doctor Who. So I think the spinny thing might be a good motif for Doctor Who as well. So
Mm. Yeah, I did see. Yeah, I think you've seen again.
oh yeah,
Follow you
I'm,
on socials
I'm
and
putting it
everything.
out there.
Aye, why
You,
not?
you'll
You can.
see. You'll see. I'll announce it within the year that I'm doing Doctor Who. Guarantee
Aye, so it's an exclusive. If it comes out, then we got it first.
it. Yeah.
So, as you said, yeah, moving back into the kind of younger cast who also again do a great job. And I seen now my music is terrible, but the dad is. I know I've heard of Scroobius Pip,
Yeah.
so and that's who the dad is.
Yeah, Scroobius Pip. He's a,
Yeah,
he's a rapper, podcaster, friend.
hmm,
He's awesome, and
yeah.
he
I'm sure
is.
I remember this was something for the 90s that was like a big hit and a bit mad. My
Yeah,
music
it was about.
knowledge is terrible.
Over a decade ago. He had a song
Mm,
with Dan the Sack called "Thou Shalt Kill,"
aye,
and
that's one.
it's great. And
Aye.
and he does now he does stuff on Twitch, and
Cool.
he's great. He's just a real good guy. He's a writer as well. And he has I just like his vibe, and
Hmm.
I really wanted him in this. So and there's only really one role. Well, he could have actually played the intruder or the
Mm,
dad, but I thought he had more of a dad vibe.
Aye.
So yeah, cast him as the dad.
Yeah.
Actually, the casting was so smooth in all of this; it went really, really well for everyone.
Hmm. And was it the same for the kids as well? Finding the kids to kind of match the
Yeah,
kind of energy of Jess and Scott.
yeah. I mean, I would say 95% of the messages that I've got is, where did you find that young Jess? Like, she's so
Mm.
good. Honestly, like everyone's just like, who is she? Um, Shakira Dowling is the casting agent. You know, I would say half the casting are just my mates, but then all the kids, except for one, because one of the kids is my niece, but all of the kids were cast by Shakira Dowling, amazing casting director, um, and basically it was just self tape. She put the word out, needed a certain bunch of kids who looked like they look, and they sent in self tapes, and it was so funny. Like with the young Scott, it was like straight away I knew it was him. But
Hmm.
for Maya, her self tape was actually last, because originally my niece was going to be young Jess,
Oh, right, cool.
originally, because she's a really good actress. So I was like, this is the easiest casting ever. But then Maya's self tape came in, and I was like, oh wow, she's really good, and she looks like Gemma. She looks exactly like Gemma. Like, it's ridiculous. And even on
Hmm.
set, people were just like, what? It is literally like a mini me. And she's
Hmm.
really, really cool girl, a cinephile. We were speaking about like French movies. She knows her
Cool.
stuff. Um, so yeah, as soon as she came along, and like the chemistry between her and Zaki, who plays young Scott, is really, really cool. And Gemma came down, because she wasn't actually scheduled to come down for any of that Laser Quest stuff, but she came down to like hang out with Maya and get their mannerisms to match. And if you
Mm.
see, some of their mannerisms are exactly the same because they both
Yeah.
worked on it. So yeah, it's the kids are cast really, really, really well. Um, yeah, I'll hopefully work with both those kids again because they're so talented.
Yeah. And this at this point that Jess has obviously made the decision to almost kind of supplant a negative effect onto Scott, make sure Scott stays away from her, save his life in the future.
Yeah,
That kind of butterfly effect,
yeah.
uh, moving forward for the way their lives are going to pan out. So it's
Hmm.
not just you've not just got the time travel and the potential kind of the spiritual side of yoga. You've also got the butterfly effect
Hmm.
folded into this. There's so much just
Hmm.
in the the short space of time we've got with the characters. That's a really interesting thing as well. I think the
Yeah.
butterfly effect in general, like, it's just such an interesting concept.
Oh yeah. There's like layers upon layers, and honestly, like every time you rewatch it, there's another layer that will appear. I mean, and that's why
Mm-hmm.
you see Haley, whose character's called Lily, but I just call them by their real names all the time anyway.
Yeah, fair enough.
So that's why you see Haley at the start, because I wanted to make you understand that Haley is Gemma's friend, best friend, in fact. So when
Mm-hmm.
at the end you see what happens, you're even more heartbroken.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's like a formula, and just before Scott is shot, like, they talk about marriage, talk about kids, just so like you're really invested in these two people. It's very lovey dovey, and then bang, just to pull the carpet away from you. It's kind of
Yeah.
cruel, but you need it in order to create that like whiplash of emotion.
Mm-hmm. And you do pull the rug there as well, because obviously when it comes back to us being in the kind of current timeline with Jess, and she's sitting having a coffee, and Scott's looking at her, and
Hmm.
you think, "Oh, is this going to be the bit where he comes in and sweeps her off her feet, and they still get that happily ever after sort of thing?" But
Hmm.
yeah, it's just the Haley, or Lily, the character, just kind of
Yeah.
comes through from the background, and there's a pram in front of them all, and yeah, it's they're just that last wee sweep just before you go.
Oh,
But the character Jess still seems fairly hopeful because she's made the right
yeah.
choice.
Well, it's really funny, and actually, I would say the similarity to the ending of this is kind of like what we were doing with Dashcam, where
Mm,
you know we were like, when we were writing Dashcam, we were trying to one up each other and just be like, okay,
mhm.
this thing happens, and then this more messed up thing happens, and then this more messed up thing happens, and that's why Dashcam is just like crazy. So there's a little bit
Mm,
at the end where you just think, okay, cool, there's Scott happy ending, then then bang, Haley appears, and they embrace. So they're together. Bang, and then there's a kid as well. Bang, and then he doesn't even really remember her, and then she's by
Yeah.
herself. Yeah, and it's just really good acting from Gemma at the end, because you can see
Mhm.
all those emotions on her face. And I was actually just off camera, and I was shouting emotions at her. I was just like, "Hey, Gemma, now you're feeling grief. Now you're feeling blah blah blah. Now you're feeling acceptance." And
Mhm.
yeah, and by the way, in that scene, there's so many Easter eggs around you. Like, there's a notice board behind her, and there's loads of interesting information on the notice board as well. In
Cool.
fact, through the whole thing, there's Easter eggs absolutely everywhere.
Mm. Need to have another look back then and try
Yeah,
and kind of spot them, and then just send you a message.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, it's a bit a kind of bittersweet ending. Obviously, she's made the right choice,
hmm
but and she is kind of looking forward. I think is how I read it. Now
yes.
you spoke about the VFX and obviously practical effects. So Doctor Bones,
hmm
how did that come about? Because that is creepy. That is the
Yeah,
probably the horror element that everybody
yes.
would get.
Well, so Trevor Henderson, he designed Doctor
Mm,
Bones. He's the guy behind Siren Head and Cartoon Cat. Um, and KM Effects made the creature for me. They did all the
mm,
creatures for Sandman, the Netflix show, The
cool.
Sandman.
Nice.
Um, so yeah, so I wanted a monster in this. If I'm going to do a time travel romance, and there also needs to be a monster, because I just want monsters, practical monsters, and everything. So I basically needed something that represented death, and essentially he represents death. So
Yeah.
the little cuddly doll version of Doctor Bones, um, that's with her since childhood. And again, there was a longer version of this film, and in the future I'll explore it. But she's had that since she was a little kid. Her mum gave that to her, and her mum's not in the short because her mum died as a kid, um,
Okay.
as when Jess was a kid. And yeah, and the time is like locked at on 8:26, because, and again, if you're eagle-eyed, 8:26 is the time she dies. So Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Bones always has 8:26 on him, because to represent the time that Jess is going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, she keeps seeing this Dr. Bones character everywhere she goes. Actually, when she was in the park with Haley, in one edit, there you see a Dr. Bones like in the trees, just poking through the branches. But we cut.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, Sam Raimi told me to cut that out.
Aye.
And so there was. So yeah, so when she's in her flashback and she sees Dr. Bones represents death, and it's getting closer and closer and closer to her, and she
Mm-hmm.
knows that when she embraces death, it'll either kill her for good because her plan didn't work, or it will reset time or bring her back to her normal time, and
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully everything's cool. So I basically needed a reset button. So Dr. Bones came to be. But Dr. Bones is really interesting because in the in-world universe, Dr. Bones is essentially like a Barney the dinosaur type thing. It was a popular TV show in the 80s or 90s, and kids love Dr. Bones, and you see a little snippet of it at the end as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just another weird layer to add on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a really cool design, as you said. And again, from behind the scenes stuff, there was the practical
Yeah.
uh, design there, practical costumes. So
hmm
that adds that kind of extra layer. I'm sure there would have been an option just to go full hog VFX, but I think from what we've seen from you as a kind of writer and filmmaker as well, the practical side does seem quite important for you.
Yeah, I always just stick monsters in stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so yeah, I think Doctor Bones. I'd love to in a feature version explore Doctor Bones a little bit more, and
Mm-hmm.
I've got loads of plans for Doctor Bones as well. Because like again in the world universe, Doctor Bones is actually a spin-off of another show called Wake Up Way, where there's lots of these creatures. There's
Okay, cool.
all different creatures. One's called Lucy Lamb, and yeah, Doctor Bones was just so popular he got a spin-off show, and that's what
Cool.
yeah. And then Gemma keeps seeing him everywhere.
Aye. Yeah, really, really cool character design, really interesting character, and the Trevor Henderson, as you said as well. He always does
Yeah.
those really unsettling videos as well, with the
Yeah.
siren head coming in. Yeah, really cool.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
just to touch then, lastly, you did say, and again from following you about the the kind of encouragement you got from Sam Raimi for making this,
Yeah.
and I know I've spoken to you about it, and you seem to be kind of quite uh, have quite a good relationship with him.
Hmm.
Is that did you give yourself more pressure having that chat with him, like having him maybe to bounce things off of? Did that
Um,
add something to yourself?
I mean, I already knew him before this project, but
Mm-hmm.
he came on board officially as like my mentor on this.
Cool.
So yeah, he helped me every step of the way.
Yeah.
And he's just a real good guy. I didn't find any. I didn't feel any pressure, to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
because I was just making something. I just always make stuff that I like, and if other people like it too, that's an absolute bonus.
Cool.
Um, and Sam loved it, so I was like, okay, cool. Me and Sam love it. So if anyone else does, then that's great too. And yeah,
Aye.
it's been good. But yeah, he's great. I just produced a little something where with his daughter as well. His daughter's acting in something that I
Nice.
helped with. Um, yeah, so sorry, and Sam Raimi is my favorite director, and like, sometimes I think like it's hard to understand in my brain that growing up as a kid and being obsessed with Sam Raimi movies, like I can now count Sam as my friend, and someone
Mm-hmm.
I can actually really go to for advice and help on stuff, and yeah,
Yeah.
and we have some pretty big things planned in the future as
Yeah.
well, so that's going to be cool.
Mm. Yeah, obviously, I've spoke to you before about Sam Raimi. I had on an episode of my podcast, and
Hmm.
um, later on, I had Chris Hewitt from Empire on, and
Hmm.
because you'd picked Sam Raimi, he couldn't. And then when I told him one of the movies that you'd picked, and I've taken a total blank for it. Crime Spree? No,
Crime Wave,
what's the name? Crime Wave.
yeah.
He said he could not believe. He said he was going to have words with you, but I'm sure it would have
Okay,
been friendly words.
was he going to pick Crime Wave as well?
No, but he didn't pick
Oh,
Sam Raimi. He went for Carpenter,
okay,
um,
cool. I could have easily picked
because
Carpenter, but the
yeah,
crime.
anyway,
Just quickly, crime. Yeah, people hate on Crime Wave, but I
mm,
think Crime Wave is probably it's not a good film, but I think it's the
mm,
most important film that Sam Raimi has done. But you can
yeah,
probably listen to your podcast if anyone wants to know about that, because I think I go into
yeah.
detail.
Certainly interesting. But yeah,
Yeah.
just that was just a wee kind of final touch on that. So we've got Flashback out now. As you said, you're working on a lot. When can we hope to next see something from you? Have you got anything kind of?
Yeah, so I don't know what I can say. Working on a lot of things, and I'm the type of person like I like Flashback. You'll find out the day before or 2 days before. I'd
Cool.
rather not be one of those people that kind of just say I'm doing something and then you have to wait for ages. So yeah, I
Aye,
would just
fair
say
enough.
keep an eye on my social media and you'll see. But for now, you've got lots of stuff out there. Actually, on iPlayer for this Halloween, Host is on there, so
Yeah.
go watch Host again.
Mm-hmm.
Dashcam is on Netflix in some regions.
Mm.
Um, Scare Package 2 is on Shudder,
Yep.
and Flashbacks on Netflix.
Magic. Jed, thanks very much for joining us.
Cheers, mate.
The good, the bad, and everything in between. If you could control that flashback and live in the moment again, would you change things?